Al Pacino never needed to shout to be heard, and maybe that's exactly why the world still listens to every word he says, as if it were a lesson. The story begins in the streets of the Bronx, New York. Son of Italian immigrants, raised by a single mother with no money and no connections. A kid with a dream. That seemed too big for the world around him. In the 1960s, Hollywood only cared about perfect faces and magazine smiles. Pacino had neither. He had something else. Maybe worse. Or better. Intensity. He watched more than he spoke. And in that silence was born the gaze that would change cinema forever. The first act. In 1972, Francis Ford Coppola was fighting with Paramount. The studio wanted a movie star, a poster face. Coppola wanted an actor of truth. Al who? They asked. A theater kid. Short, shy, almost invisible. Coppola was nearly fired for insisting. But in the first scene of The Godfather, Pacino's silence spoke louder than any speech. One look was enough to show that Michael Corleone didn't need to raise his voice to hold power, and cinema was never the same again. From anonymity to myth. After that came Serpico, Dog Day Afternoon, Scarface, Scent of a Woman. Decade after decade, he reinvented himself, but success brought a new enemy: fame. Pacino always said that fame is like smoke, beautiful from afar, toxic up close. While others chased the lights, he ran from them. He went back to theater, where truth doesn't depend on spotlights. Many thought he was crazy, but it wasn't escape. It was maintenance of the soul. The obsession with detail. Behind the scenes, Pacino was famous for being obsessive. He repeated scenes until the truth arrived. In Scent of a Woman, he spent weeks living as a blind man, learning movements, relearning instinct. When the film premiered, everyone said he had reached his peak. He just replied, "It wasn't acting. It was life." That's Pacino. He doesn't perform. He embodies. And that's why the camera loves him, because he never lies. The price of truth. Being intense has a cost. Pacino lost relationships, friends, and sometimes his own peace. He once said he needs to hide for a while after playing heavy roles. But that intensity is what keeps him human. Every role carries an unspoken question: who am I? When the camera stops rolling. And maybe that's why we relate to him so much, because deep down, we all wear a character to survive. If you like stories of artists who live for what they believe in and not for what they show, leave a like. You'll help this video reach more people who think like you. The falls and the returns. In the 1980s, Pacino disappeared from the screens. They said his era was over, but he came back bigger. Scarface put him back on the map. Tony Montana became a symbol of limitless ambition and the price of vanity. And Pacino proved he knew how to shout when necessary. Even in his rage, there was control. Every word was measured, every explosion calculated. The chaos always had purpose. Time and change. With time, his voice grew softer. His gaze, lighter. But his presence remained immense. Today, at 80, Pacino still acts with the same hunger as before. Not out of vanity, out of necessity. In an interview, he said, "I still work because there are things I still need to understand." That sentence says everything. The artist who never stopped searching for meaning. The Pacino method. On set, no one knows what to expect. Sometimes he arrives quiet, observes, and vanishes into the character. Other times, he laughs, jokes, and changes the entire mood of the crew. He understands that each story demands a different energy. That emotional intelligence is what separates the good from the legendary. In The Devil's Advocate, he turned vanity into pure villainy. In Scent of a Woman, he turned fragility into courage. And in The Irishman, he showed that time doesn't weaken those who still have something to say. philosophy behind the myth. Pacino always said that art is a form of faith. You need to believe in the invisible to make the visible worth it. He doesn't follow trends. He follows truth. And that truth is what keeps the audience glued to every pause he takes. Because even when Pacino doesn't speak, he says everything. If you've made it this far, tell me, what film of his moved you the most? That scene that made you sit in silence for just a moment. I read every comment, personally. And if you like real stories with soul, purpose, and cinema, subscribe. There's so much more coming. The legacy. Pacino's legacy isn't in awards or box office numbers. It's in what he represents. The strength to keep searching for meaning. He's the proof that greatness doesn't shout, it whispers. And those who learn to listen understand. When the screen fades to black and the audience stays silent, it's because the truth still echoes inside. That's the power of Al Pacino, the power of a man who never needed to be loud, to be eternal. And you? Are you living to impress or to express? If this story inspired you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Because in the end, calm has its own power, and silence is the sound of those who've already arrived.